I was standing in my driveway at 6 in the morning, coffee in hand, watching the most beautiful piece of machinery I'd ever owned roll off the delivery truck, when I saw Patricia Hartwell's front curtains twitch across the street. The woman had a sixth sense for anything that might violate some obscure HOA rule she'd memorized from our neighborhood's 70-page covenant document. My name is Vincent Holloway, and I just purchased a used Ham HD12 asphalt roller for $12,000. Before you think I've lost my mind, let me explain. I'm a contractor who specializes in small-scale paving jobs, driveways, parking lots for mom and pop shops, that sort of thing. For the past 5 years, I'd been renting equipment at $200 a day, which added up to a small fortune annually. Buying my own roller made perfect financial sense. The delivery driver, a weathered guy named Mike who looked like he'd been hauling heavy equipment since the Reagan administration, guided the massive yellow roller down the ramps with practiced ease. It settled onto my driveway with a satisfying thud that I felt through my boots. "She's all yours," Mike said, handing me the keys and a clipboard to sign. "Runs like a dream. Had her serviced last week." I signed the paperwork, practically giddy with excitement. This roller represented independence, the ability to take on bigger jobs without worrying about rental schedules or equipment availability. My business, Holloway Paving Solutions, was about to level up in a major way. Mike drove off in his truck, and I spent the next hour going over my new purchase, checking the controls, the engine, the drum. Everything looked perfect. I was so absorbed that I didn't notice Patricia crossing the street until she was standing right at the edge of my driveway, arms crossed, her face pinched into that expression of perpetual disapproval she'd perfected over her 53 years. "Vincent," she said, my name sounding like an accusation. "What on earth is that monstrosity?" "Morning, Patricia," I said, trying to keep my tone friendly. "It's an asphalt roller. I just bought it for my business." "Your business?" Her eyebrows shot up. "You run your business from a residential property." "I run my business from my truck," I corrected. "This is just equipment storage, same as you storing your car in your garage." "A car is not a commercial vehicle," she said, pulling out her phone. I noticed she already had our HOA's handbook pulled up on the screen. Section 7, Paragraph 3 clearly states that commercial vehicles over 10,000 pounds are not permitted to be stored on residential properties within Pine Ridge Estates. Pine Ridge Estates. The name made our modest neighborhood in suburban Cleveland, Ohio sound like some kind of luxury resort instead of the collection of middle-class homes it actually was. We had nice houses, sure, but we weren't exactly living in mansions. "Patricia, I'm not storing it here long-term," I explained, my patience already wearing thin. "I've got a job starting Monday. The roller will be gone by tomorrow afternoon." She pursed her lips. "The rules are quite clear. I'll be filing a formal complaint with the HOA board." "We have an emergency meeting scheduled for tomorrow evening, actually. I'm sure this will be added to the agenda." "An emergency meeting? On a Sunday?" "We have several pressing matters to address," she said primly. "Your commercial vehicle will now be one of them." She turned on her heel and marched back to her house, phone already pressed to her ear. I could see her mouth moving rapidly as she walked, no doubt calling every other board member to report my heinous crime of owning work equipment. I shook my head and went back to inspecting my roller. Patricia had been a thorn in everyone's side since she'd been elected HOA president 2 years ago. Before her, the HOA had been a fairly reasonable group that handled the basics, maintaining the common areas, organizing the annual neighborhood garage sale, keeping the entrance landscaping tidy. Under Patricia's reign, it had become something out of a dystopian nightmare. She'd fined the Johnsons $300 because their mailbox was the wrong shade of black. She'd threatened to put a lien on the Ramirez house because their daughter's chalk drawings on their own driveway were visual pollution. She'd even tried to ban basketball hoops, claiming the sound of bouncing balls disrupted the peaceful ambience of the neighborhood. My phone rang. It was my buddy Jake Torres, who lived 3 streets over, also in Pine Ridge Estates. "Dude, Patricia just called my wife asking if she's witnessed your commercial vehicle menace," Jake said, laughing. "What you do?" "Bought an asphalt roller for work." "Nice. That's going to save you a fortune in rental fees." "That's what I thought. Patricia thinks it's the end of Western civilization." "Of course she does. Listen, you want to grab a beer later? We're grilling out." "Can't. I've got to move this thing to my job site tomorrow morning, and I want to make sure everything's working properly." "Job site? Where you working?" "That stretch of Route 42 between Strongsville and North Royalton. The county finally approved the resurfacing project." "The highway?" "I thought you did driveways." "Usually, yeah, but this is a smaller section, about 3 miles. The county put out a bid for local contractors and I came in lower than the big companies. It's my first public works job." "That's huge, man. Congratulations." "Thanks. I'm pretty excited about it." "And nervous. If I do well on this, it could lead to more county work." We chatted for a few more minutes before hanging up. I spent the rest of the morning doing a test run of the roller up and down my driveway, checking the vibration settings, the water system, all the controls. Everything worked perfectly. The neighbors who weren't Patricia seemed interested rather than annoyed. Old Mr. Chen from next door came over to admire it, asking technical questions about the compaction rate and drum width. His grandson was studying civil engineering, and he took a bunch of photos to show him. By noon, I was satisfied that my purchase was sound. I parked the roller at the far edge of my driveway, grabbed lunch, and spent the afternoon going over the Route 42 project plans in my home office. The county had been very thorough with their specifications. I'd be working with a small crew, 3 guys I'd worked with before, plus a traffic control team the county was providing. We had 2 weeks to complete the job, weather permitting. Sunday morning arrived with a knock on my door at 7. I was already up, having coffee and reviewing supply lists, but I wasn't expecting visitors. I opened the door to find 2 police officers standing on my porch. "Vincent Holloway?" the older officer asked. His name tag read Morrison. "That's me. What's this about?" "We received a complaint about an illegally stored commercial vehicle," he said, consulting a small notebook. "The caller reported that you're operating an unlicensed business from a residential property and storing heavy machinery in violation of local ordinances." I felt my jaw clench. "Officer, I'm a licensed contractor. My business license is registered at this address, which is completely legal. The roller in my driveway is temporary. I'm moving it to a job site this afternoon." The second officer, younger, named Davis according to his tag, was already walking around to look at the roller. "That's a decent-sized machine. It's for my job starting tomorrow," I explained. "I'm resurfacing part of Route 42 for the county." Officer Morrison's expression changed slightly. "You're the contractor on the 42 project?" "Yeah, Holloway Paving Solutions. You can check with the County Road Commission." "I drive that stretch every day on my way home," Davis said, walking back around. "It's pretty torn up." "It is," I agreed. "That's why they're paying me to fix it." Morrison made a note in his book. "Do you have your business license and the county contract handy?" "Sure, give me a second." I retrieved both documents from my office and brought them back. Morrison looked them over carefully, took photos with his phone, and handed them back. "Everything looks in order, Mr. Holloway," he said. "However, you should be aware that your HOA does have the right to enforce their covenants regarding vehicle storage. That's a civil matter, not a criminal one, so we can't do anything about it. But if they choose to fine you or take legal action, that's between you and them. I understand. Like I said, the roller will be gone by this afternoon." "Sounds good. Sorry to bother you." They left, and I watched their cruiser pull away. Before it even reached the corner, I saw Patricia emerge from her house, clearly disappointed that I wasn't being led away in handcuffs. She'd actually called the cops on me, over an asphalt roller that was going to be parked in my driveway for less than 24 hours. My phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from the Pine Ridge Estates HOA, marked urgent. I opened it to find a formal notice that I was in violation of Section 7, Paragraph 3 of the Neighborhood Covenants, and that I was required to attend the emergency board meeting at 6 that evening or face immediate fines of $250 per day until the violation was corrected. I looked at the time. It was only 7:30 in the morning. Patricia worked fast. I called my crew chief, Marcus Webb, to confirm the afternoon's plan. "We're all set," Marcus said. "Tony and Lewis are meeting us at your place at 2. We'll caravan the roller over to the staging area on 42. The county has that cleared for us, right?" "Yeah, everything's set up. We've got a fenced area right off the shoulder near the North Royalton end. That's where we'll keep all the equipment." "Perfect. See you at 2. I spent the rest of the morning organizing tools and supplies, loading my truck with safety gear and surveying equipment. Around noon, Jake called again. "Dude, my wife just got another call from Patricia. She's telling everyone in the neighborhood about your illegal commercial operation and trying to rally people to the HOA meeting tonight." "I'm not even going to be there," I said. "The roller will be gone by 2. The whole thing will be moot. You should go anyway. Patricia's on a warpath. She's been trying to find ways to force you out ever since you voted against her proposal to ban pickup trucks from driveways." That was true. 6 months ago, Patricia had proposed that all trucks had to be parked in garages or on side yards, not in driveways or on the street, because they were unsightly. The proposal had failed, but only narrowly, and I'd been one of the most vocal opponents. My F-250 was my work vehicle, and I wasn't about to squeeze it into my garage when I needed it loaded and ready to go at any moment. "I've got work to do," I told Jake. "Patricia can rant to an empty chair for all I care. Your funeral. But seriously, watch your back with her. She's vindictive." Marcus, Tony, and Lewis showed up right at 2, pulling up in Marcus's extended cab pickup. All 3 of them stood admiring the roller while I fetched the keys. "She's a beauty," Tony said, running his hand along the bright yellow paint. "Way better than those beat-up rentals we've been using." "Should make the job go a lot smoother," Lewis agreed. "These older hams are workhorses." I climbed up into the operator's seat while Marcus got in his truck to lead the way. The roller started with a deep, satisfying rumble. I'd driven plenty of these before, but there was something different about driving one I actually owned. This was mine, an investment in my future. We made our way through the neighborhood at a crawl, the roller's top speed being around 7 miles per hour. I could see curtains twitching as we passed, neighbors curious about the unusual sight of a road roller cruising down Pine Crest Drive. Patricia's car was gone from her driveway, thankfully. I didn't need another confrontation. The drive to Route 42 took about 40 minutes. The staging area the county had set up was perfect, a graveled lot right off the highway, surrounded by chain-link fencing with a sturdy gate. A county truck was already there, along with a small trailer containing traffic signs and equipment. A woman in a neon safety vest and hard hat approached as we pulled in. She was tall, probably in her mid-30s with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. "Vincent Holloway?" she asked. "That's me. Teresa Brennan, County Road Commission. I'm your site supervisor for this project." She shook my hand with a firm grip. "Nice roller. That's going to work well for this stretch. Thanks. I just picked it up yesterday. Good timing." She pulled out a tablet and brought up the project plans. "Let me walk you through the schedule and safety protocols. We've got traffic control starting at 6 tomorrow morning. You'll have one lane completely closed. The other lane will be alternating one-way traffic controlled by flaggers." We spent the next hour going over every detail of the project. Teresa was thorough and professional, asking good questions about my equipment and crew capabilities. I liked her immediately. She knew her stuff and didn't waste time. "The commute crowd uses this stretch heavily," she explained. "Morning rush is 7 to 9, evening is 4 to 7. We're going to want to minimize disruption during those times, which means having your prep work done early and working efficiently during the day. Think you can handle that?" "Absolutely. We're planning to start each day at 6:30, do the heavy work during midday when traffic's lighter." "Perfect. I'll be stopping by every couple of days to check progress and address any issues. You've got my number if anything comes up." By the time we finished, it was after 4. I locked up the roller in the staging area, making sure everything was secure. Marcus dropped me back at my house. "Big day tomorrow," he said. "Get some rest. You too, see you at 6. I was exhausted but satisfied. The first day had gone perfectly. The roller was safely stored at the job site, ready for tomorrow's start. I grabbed a shower, made myself dinner, and settled in to watch a basketball game, deliberately ignoring my phone, which had been buzzing periodically with what I assumed were HOA-related messages. Around 7:30, Jake called. "You missed quite a show," he said, barely containing his laughter. "The HOA meeting. Oh man, it was epic. Patricia spent 20 minutes ranting about your roller, showed everyone pictures she'd taken, went on and on about property values and neighborhood character. Then Mr. Chen stood up and asked where the roller was. Patricia said you were probably hiding it. Then Mrs. Ramirez, who's still mad about the chalk incident, asked why Patricia had called the police on a neighbor for legally storing equipment for less than a day. How'd Patricia respond to that? She got all huffy and said it was about principle. Then someone asked what the emergency was if the roller was already gone. The meeting kind of fell apart after that. Half the people left. Patricia tried to push through a motion to fine you anyway, but it failed. She needs a majority vote and she couldn't get it. Good. But here's the thing, Vincent. She's really angry. Like scary angry. She said something about how you think you're above the rules and that she's going to make sure you understand the consequences of defying the HOA. I didn't defy anything. I stored equipment in my driveway for one day. I know that. You know that. Patricia lives in her own reality where she's defending the neighborhood against chaos and disorder. She needs a hobby. She has one, making everyone miserable. We talked for a few more minutes before I told him I needed to get to bed early. Tomorrow was a big day and I wanted to be sharp. I woke up at 5 Monday morning, alert and energized despite the early hour. This was it. My first major public works project. I dressed in my work clothes, grabbed my hard hat and safety vest, and made the drive back to Route 42. The site was already bustling when I arrived. The traffic control team had set up the signs and cones, and Marcus, Tony, and Lewis were doing equipment checks. Teresa Brennan was there too, conferring with the lead flagger. "Morning," she called out. "Ready to pave some highway. Let's do this." The first day of any paving project is all about preparation. We spent the morning milling up the old damaged asphalt, the machine chewing through the degraded surface and spitting it into dump trucks for removal. The county had arranged for the recycling, which was good, modern asphalt could be reclaimed and reused. By noon, we had a quarter-mile of roadbed exposed and ready. The fresh asphalt wouldn't arrive until the next day, but we'd made excellent progress. Traffic was flowing smoothly in the alternating pattern, and we hadn't had any incidents. I was up in the cab of the roller, moving it to a new position, when I noticed a familiar white SUV pull onto the shoulder about 100 yards away. My stomach sank. Patricia's car. She got out, still dressed in business casual like she'd come straight from her job at an insurance office, and started walking toward the work zone. One of the flaggers, a young guy named Derek, immediately moved to intercept her. "Madam, you can't be in this area," I heard him say. "This is an active work zone." "I need to speak to someone in charge," Patricia said loudly. Teresa appeared from the county truck. "I'm the site supervisor. Can I help you?" "That man," Patricia pointed at me, still sitting in the roller, "is operating that machine illegally. He's running an unlicensed business, and I'm here to report him." Teresa's expression remained professional, but I could see the confusion. "Madam, Mr. Holloway is a licensed contractor working on an authorized county project. Everything is completely legal and above board." "That's impossible. He lives in my neighborhood. He's operating a commercial business from a residential property." "That has nothing to do with this work site," Teresa said, her patience clearly wearing thin. "This is county property, and we have all the necessary permits and licenses. Unless you have official business here, I need to ask you to leave. This is a dangerous area. I want to see his permits." "Madam, I'm not showing you project documents. You need to leave now, or I'll have to call the sheriff's office." Patricia's face turned red. "This isn't over. I know people at the county. I'm going to have this entire operation investigated." She stormed back to her car and peeled out, kicking up gravel. Derek, the flagger, shook his head in disbelief. Teresa walked over to where I'd climbed down from the roller. "What was that about?" "HOA president from my neighborhood. She's got a grudge." "Over what?" "Over me existing, mostly." I explained the situation with the roller, the HOA meeting, the entire ridiculous saga. Teresa rolled her eyes. "I've dealt with HOAs before. Some of those board members act like they're running a country instead of a neighborhood association." She pulled out her tablet. "Listen, just so you know, I'm documenting this incident. If she shows up again, we'll have grounds to get a court order keeping her away from the site. We can't have unauthorized people in an active work zone. It's a safety violation and a liability. I'm sorry about this. Not your fault. Some people just have too much time on their hands." She glanced at her watch. "It's almost 3. Why don't you guys knock off for the day? You've made great progress, and I don't want you working through rush hour traffic." We packed up the equipment and secured everything in the staging area. I was driving home, replaying the day in my mind when Marcus called. "Hey, boss, just wanted to say great first day. We're ahead of schedule." "Thanks, Marcus. You guys did great work. That lady who showed up, is she going to be a problem?" "I hope not. But with Patricia, you never know." I got home around 4:30, tired but satisfied. Despite Patricia's appearance, the day had gone well. We were set up for success on this project. I was heating up leftovers for dinner when someone knocked on my door. It was Mr. Chen from next door, looking concerned. "Vincent, I wanted to give you a heads up. Patricia came by about an hour ago with some papers. She's going door to door, getting signatures for something." "Signatures for what?" "A petition to have you removed from the neighborhood. She's claiming you're running an illegal business and that the roller incident is proof you're violating the covenants. The roller hasn't been here since Sunday. I know. I told her that. She said it doesn't matter, that you've shown your intent to violate the rules and that you're a threat to property values. He shook his head. I didn't sign it, obviously, but I thought you should know. Thanks, Mr. Chen. I appreciate it. After he left, I sat down and really thought about the situation. Patricia wasn't going to let this go. She'd called the police, held an emergency HOA meeting, shown up at my work site, and now she was collecting signatures to try to force me out of my house. This was escalating beyond a simple HOA dispute. I called my lawyer, David Brennan. No relation to Teresa, just a coincidence. David had handled the incorporation of my business and a few contract disputes over the years. He was good, practical, and didn't overcharge. Vincent, good to hear from you. How's business? Business is great. I'm actually calling about a personal matter. My HOA president is harassing me. I laid out the entire situation for him. David listened without interrupting, which I appreciated. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Okay, this is definitely harassment, he said finally. Showing up at your work site is particularly problematic. That could be construed as stalking, especially since she has no legitimate business there. The petition is concerning too. HOAs do have the power to fine residents and even put liens on properties, but they have to follow their own procedures. They can't just arbitrarily kick someone out. What should I do? Document everything. Every interaction, every email, every phone call. Take photos and videos when appropriate. If she shows up at your work site again, have the county supervisor call the sheriff. If she comes to your house, tell her all communication needs to go through me. He paused. I'm going to draft a cease and desist letter. If Patricia continues this harassment after receiving it, we'll have grounds for a restraining order. How much is this going to cost me? For now, just my hourly rate for the letter and consultation. If this goes further, we'll discuss it. But honestly, Vincent, most people back off once they get a legal letter. She's probably used to intimidating people who don't push back. Send the letter. I'll have it out tomorrow. Tuesday morning, I was back at the site at 6. The asphalt trucks arrived at 7, right on schedule, loaded with steaming hot mix. This was the real work, the part that required precision and timing. Hot asphalt has a narrow window where it's workable. Too hot and it's like lava, too cold and it won't compact properly. We worked in a coordinated rhythm. The trucks dumped their loads, the paver spread it evenly, and I followed behind with the roller, making pass after pass to compact it to the specified density. It was hot, demanding work. The summer sun beat down on us, and the asphalt's heat radiated up. My shirt was soaked with sweat within an hour, but it was good work. There's something satisfying about watching a broken, potholed road transform into a smooth, fresh surface. This was work that mattered, work that would make thousands of people's daily commutes safer and easier. Teresa stopped by around 10 to check our progress. She walked the completed section, checking the grade and compaction. This is excellent work, Vincent, she said. Really professional job. Thanks. My crew knows what they're doing. At this rate, you'll finish ahead of schedule. We broke for lunch at noon, sitting in the shade of Marcus's truck, eating sandwiches and drinking cold water. Traffic flowed past us, drivers mostly patient with the delays, though a few honked irritably. My wife says there's talk in the neighborhood, Tony said, wiping sweat from his face. About you and the HOA lady. It's nothing, I said, just HOA drama. She sounds crazy, Lewis added. My cousin lives in an HOA neighborhood. He got fined because his grass was 2 inches tall instead of 1.5. Who measures grass? HOA presidents, Marcus said. With nothing better to do, we got back to work, pushing through the afternoon heat. By 4, we'd laid nearly half a mile of new asphalt. The road behind us looked beautiful, smooth and black, still radiating heat. Excellent day, Teresa said, reviewing her checklist. You're about 2 days ahead of schedule. If you keep this up, we might finish the whole project in 10 days instead of 14. Weather permitting, I said, glancing at the clear sky. Weather permitting, she agreed. I was driving home, windows down, enjoying the breeze when my phone rang through the truck speakers. It was David, my lawyer. Vincent, I sent the cease and desist letter to Patricia Hartwell this morning. It was delivered by courier at 10. And she called my office 15 minutes ago. She was very angry, made some threats about counter-suing for harassment. Can she do that? She can try, but she has no grounds. I made it very clear in my letter that we have documented her behavior, including her appearance at your worksite, which the county supervisor witnessed and documented. I also pointed out that HOAs are subject to Ohio's anti-harassment statutes and that board members can be held personally liable for harassment. How'd she respond to that? She hung up on my paralegal. But here's the thing, Vincent. People like Patricia don't like being told no. She might back off or she might escalate. Be prepared for either outcome. What would escalation look like? More complaints, possibly to the county or state agencies. Bogus violations. Attempts to fine you through the HOA. Just stay alert and keep documenting. That night, I couldn't shake a feeling of unease. Patricia had proven herself to be vindictive and irrational. What would she do next? I got my answer Wednesday morning. I arrived at the worksite at 6 to find 2 county inspectors waiting, both looking annoyed at having to be there so early. Teresa was with them, arms crossed, clearly angry. Vincent, these gentlemen are from the county building department, she said. Someone filed a complaint that we're working without proper permits. But we have all the permits, I said, confused. We know, one of the inspectors said, a tired-looking man in his 50s. We've already reviewed everything with Miss Brennan. All your permits are in order. This was a bogus complaint. Who filed it? The inspector checked his clipboard. Anonymous tip called in yesterday afternoon. Said there was illegal construction happening on Route 42. This wasn't anonymous, Teresa said. This was that woman from Monday. She told you she'd have the operation investigated. The inspector shrugged. Probably, but we still have to follow up on every complaint. That's the law. They left after confirming everything was legitimate. Teresa was still fuming. This is ridiculous. We're going to lose half a day's work because of some vindictive busybody. I'm sorry, I said. This is my fault. It's not your fault, it's her fault. But if she files another bogus complaint, I'm going to file a formal harassment claim with the county attorney's office. We can't have people disrupting public works projects because of personal grudges. We got started late, but the crew worked hard to make up time. By mid-morning, we were back in our rhythm, laying fresh asphalt and rolling it smooth. I was in the middle of a compaction pass when I noticed Derek, the flagger, waving frantically at me. I shut down the roller and climbed down. What's wrong? That lady's back, he said, pointing. And she brought friends. Sure enough, Patricia's white SUV was parked on the shoulder, and she was standing there with 2 other people, a middle-aged man in an ill-fitting suit and another woman about Patricia's age. They were taking photos and videos of the work site. Teresa marched over immediately. I told you to stay away from this site. You're violating safety regulations. This is a public highway, Patricia said triumphantly. I have every right to be here, and I'm documenting everything. The public has a right to know that county funds are being wasted on unlicensed contractors. I am licensed, I called out. And you know it. Fraudulent licenses, the man in the suit said. He looked familiar, and then I placed him. Gary Stockton, another board member of the Pine Ridge HOA. We've done our research. Your so-called business is a front. Teresa had her phone out. I'm calling the sheriff. You've been warned to stay away from this active work zone. This is now criminal trespass. We're on the shoulder, Patricia said. That's public property. It's part of the work zone, as clearly marked by those signs you drove past. You're in violation of Ohio traffic code. A sheriff's cruiser arrived within 10 minutes. The deputy, a no-nonsense woman named Rodriguez, listened to both sides and then checked the work zone boundaries. Madam, she's right, Rodriguez told Patricia. You're inside the marked work zone. You need to leave immediately. This is harassment, Patricia sputtered. We're taxpayers. We have a right to observe how our tax dollars are being spent. You can observe from outside the work zone. There's a spot about 200 yards down where you can safely pull off. But you cannot be here. This is your only warning. Patricia, Gary, and their companion retreated to their vehicles. But instead of leaving, they drove down the road and parked exactly where Deputy Rodriguez had indicated, setting up what looked like a surveillance operation. Are they really going to just sit there and watch us? Tony asked. Apparently, I said, and they did. For the rest of the day, Patricia and her crew sat in their vehicles, taking photos and videos, occasionally getting out to write notes. It was creepy and distracting. Teresa called the county attorney's office during lunch. I'm filing a formal complaint, she told me after hanging up. This is interference with a public works project. The county takes that seriously. Thursday morning, Patricia and her surveillance team were back, set up in the same spot. But this time, there was also a local news van. Oh no, Marcus said. She called the media. A reporter and cameraman approached the work zone, staying outside the boundary. The reporter, a young woman with perfect hair and 2 white teeth, called out to Teresa. Madam, we've received reports of irregularities with this county paving project. Can you comment? Teresa looked ready to explode, but she kept her composure. All work on this project is being performed according to county specifications by a fully licensed and insured contractor. All permits and inspections are up to date and available for public review. We've been told the contractor is operating without proper credentials. You've been told wrong by someone with a personal vendetta. The reporter's expression sharpened. She smelled a better story. A vendetta. The person who made these allegations is involved in a personal dispute with the contractor unrelated to this project. She's been harassing him and interfering with county work. The county attorney's office is investigating her for obstruction. The reporter turned to her cameraman. Did you get that? They spent the next hour filming the work site and interviewing both Teresa and Patricia. I declined to be interviewed, taking David's advice to avoid making any public statements. The news segment aired that evening. I watched it at home, nervous about how it would be presented. To my surprise, it was actually balanced. They showed the work site, mentioned that all permits were in order, and included Teresa's statements about harassment. They also interviewed Patricia, who looked increasingly unhinged as she ranted about commercial vehicles and neighborhood covenants. The reporter's closing statement was perfect. While Miss Hartwell's concerns about her neighborhood HOA rules may be legitimate, county officials say those issues have no bearing on this properly permitted public works project. The contractor in question, Vincent Holloway, has all appropriate licenses and insurance, and the county reports his work has been exemplary. My phone started ringing immediately. Jake was first. Dude, you're famous. And Patricia looked crazy on TV. She kind of is crazy. Half the neighborhood is texting about it. A bunch of people are saying she's embarrassing Pine Ridge Estates and that she needs to resign from the HOA. That was good news, at least. Maybe public embarrassment would finally get Patricia to back off. Friday was blissfully quiet. No Patricia, no surveillance, no inspectors. We worked straight through, laying asphalt in perfect conditions. By the end of the day, we'd completed over 2 miles of the 3-mile project. One more week, Marcus said, looking at the fresh pavement behind us. Maybe less. Might finish by Wednesday, I agreed. Teresa was thrilled with the progress. Vincent, I have to tell you, this has been one of the smoothest projects I've overseen despite all the drama. Your work quality is top-notch. I'm going to be recommending you for future county projects. That means a lot, Teresa. Thanks. I mean it. We need reliable contractors who do good work and stay on schedule. That's rare. The weekend arrived and I finally had time to breathe. I slept in on Saturday, did some much-needed housework, and tried not to think about HOAs or Patricia Hartwell. Sunday morning, I was mowing my lawn when Mr. Chen came over, looking excited. Vincent, did you hear? There's an emergency HOA meeting tonight. A bunch of residents submitted a petition to hold a vote of no confidence in Patricia. Seriously, she embarrassed the whole neighborhood on TV. Plus, people are finding out about all the harassment. The Ramirez family is talking about suing over the chalk incident. The Johnsons want a refund of their mailbox fine. It's falling apart for her. I almost feel bad for her, I said. Don't, she's been a tyrant. This is overdue. That evening, I actually did attend the HOA meeting. The community center was packed, which was unusual. Most meetings drew maybe 10 people. Tonight there had to be 60 residents there. Patricia sat at the board table, her face a mask of rigid control. Gary Stockton sat next to her, looking nervous. The other 3 board members, people I barely knew, looked uncomfortable. A woman I recognized as Teresa Ramirez stood up and addressed the room. I'm calling for an immediate vote of no confidence in Patricia Hartwell as HOA president. Her behavior over the past 2 years, and especially in the past week, has been an embarrassment to this neighborhood. She's abused her position, harassed residents, and wasted our HOA funds on petty vendettas. The room erupted in applause. Patricia banged a gavel. This is out of order. You can't just call for votes. Actually, according to our bylaws, any resident can call for a leadership vote with the support of 10% of homeowners, Teresa said, holding up papers. I have signatures from 28% of households. One of the other board members, a quiet man named Robert, cleared his throat. She's right, Patricia. The bylaws are clear. This is a coup, Patricia said, her voice shaking. You're all being manipulated by people who want to destroy this neighborhood's standards. You destroyed your own credibility, someone called from the back. The vote was held. It wasn't even close. Patricia was removed as president by a margin of 53-4. Gary Stockton was also voted out. The remaining 3 board members stayed on, and Teresa Ramirez was elected new president by acclamation. Patricia sat frozen as the votes were counted, disbelief and rage warring on her face. When the results were announced, she stood up stiffly, gathered her papers, and walked out without a word. Gary followed her. The meeting continued with the new leadership. Teresa immediately made a motion to refund the Johnsons' mailbox fine and formally apologize to the Ramirez family. Both passed unanimously. Then she addressed me directly. Vincent, on behalf of the HOA, I want to apologize for the harassment you've experienced. Patricia's actions were inappropriate and not representative of this community's values. Thank you, I said, surprised. I appreciate that. We're also going to review all of the rules Patricia implemented and see which ones actually make sense, and which ones were just her being controlling. More applause. I left the meeting feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The HOA nightmare was finally over. Monday morning, refreshed and optimistic, I headed back to Route 42 for what I hoped would be the final week of work. The weather was perfect, clear and mild, ideal conditions for paving. We were setting up when Teresa arrived with unexpected news. "Vincent, I don't know what you did, but someone from the county commissioner's office called me this morning. They want to fast-track you for the Route 82 resurfacing project." The 82 project, that's huge. It's 15 miles. They were planning to bid it out to the big regional contractors, but apparently there's been some political pressure to use local businesses where possible. Your work here has been so good, and you came in under budget, so they want to talk to you. That's incredible. It gets better. They're also talking about a multi-year contract for maintenance work on county roads. Nothing's final yet, but you've definitely got their attention. I could barely process this. When I'd bought that asphalt roller, I'd been hoping to save some money on rentals. I hadn't imagined it would lead to this kind of opportunity. We worked with renewed energy, knowing we were building something bigger than just 3 miles of highway. By Wednesday afternoon, we laid the final section of asphalt. I made the last compaction passes as the sun started to set, the roller's drums smoothing out any imperfections. Teresa walked the entire 3 miles, checking everything with her practiced eye. When she reached the end where we were finishing up, she was grinning. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. This is going in my report as one of the best contractor performances I've seen in 10 years with the county. The crew cheered. We'd done it. Under budget, ahead of schedule, and with exceptional quality. Thursday was cleanup day, removing all the traffic control equipment, touching up line painting, final inspections. The county's head engineer came out personally to review the work. "Outstanding," he said, shaking my hand. "We'll be in touch about that 82 project." That evening, I drove the now familiar route from the work site back to Pine Ridge Estates. The roller was secure in the staging area until the weekend, when I'd move it to a proper storage facility I'd rented specifically to avoid any future HOA issues, though I doubted there would be any with Teresa as president. As I pulled into my driveway, I noticed something different. My mailbox had a bouquet of flowers tucked into it, with a card that read, "Thank you for your patience. Welcome back to a sane HOA, Teresa and neighbors." I smiled and carried the flowers inside. Friday morning, I was at my kitchen table, working on the bid for the Route 82 project when someone knocked on my door. I opened it to find Deputy Rodriguez, the sheriff's officer who'd responded to the worksite incident. "Mr. Holloway, I wanted to give you a heads up. We've arrested Patricia Hartwell." "What? For what?" She filed 3 more false complaints with county offices after the HOA meeting. Claimed you were engaging in illegal dumping, operating without environmental permits, and bribing county officials. All completely fabricated. The county attorney decided to prosecute for filing false reports and obstruction of government operations. Is that serious? Each false report is a first-degree misdemeanor. 3 counts could mean up to 6 months. Plus, the county is considering civil charges for the cost of investigating her bogus complaints. I felt a strange mix of vindication and sadness. Patricia had destroyed herself through her own obsessive behavior. "There's more," Rodriguez continued. "When we searched her house with a warrant, we found extensive files on you and several other residents. Photos, detailed logs of activities, financial records she'd obtained through questionable means. The prosecutor thinks she may have committed identity theft to access some of that information." "That's crazy. That's obsession. Some HOA board members get drunk on the tiny bit of power they have. She took it to an extreme. After Rodriguez left, I sat down and really thought about everything that had happened. It had started with me buying a piece of equipment for my business. A simple, rational business decision. And it had spiraled into police involvement, news coverage, HOA drama, and now criminal charges. All because one person couldn't accept that homeowners had rights and that HOA rules weren't absolute law. The weekend passed quietly. I moved the roller to its new storage facility, a secure lot that specialized in construction equipment. The owner, a guy named Pete, was impressed with the machine. "Don't see many private contractors with their own rollers," he said. "You must be doing well." "Getting there," I said. Monday morning, I had a meeting at the county offices to discuss the Route 82 project. The county engineer, road commission director, and a county commissioner were all there. "Mr. Holloway," the commissioner said, "we've been impressed with your work and professionalism. We'd like to offer you the 82 project, pending final contract negotiations." We spent 2 hours going over details, specifications, timelines. The project would start in September and run through October, weather permitting. It was worth 3 times what I'd made on the Route 42 job. "There's also the matter of the maintenance contract," the engineer said. "We're looking for a reliable local contractor to handle ongoing repairs and small resurfacing jobs on county roads. It would be a 3-year contract with options to extend. Interested?" "Absolutely." "Good. We'll have the paperwork ready next week." I walked out of that meeting feeling like my entire life had changed. 3 weeks ago, I'd been a small-time contractor doing driveways and parking lots. Now, I had major county contracts and a path to growing my business significantly. All because I'd bought an asphalt roller, and all despite Patricia Hartwell's attempts to destroy me over a perceived HOA violation. That evening, I invited Marcus, Tony, and Louis over for a barbecue to celebrate. Jake and his wife came too, along with Mr. Chen and several other neighbors. It turned into a block party, the first one I could remember in Pine Ridge Estates. Teresa Ramirez stopped by with her family. "How does it feel to be the neighborhood's most successful business owner?" she asked, smiling. "Surreal," I admitted. A month ago, I was worried about whether buying that roller was a smart investment. Best investment you ever made, sounds like. Despite all the drama it caused. "That drama wasn't because of the roller," she said seriously. "It was because Patricia saw someone succeeding and couldn't stand it. She needed to control everything and everyone. When you didn't submit to her authority, she spiraled." "How's the new HOA going?" "Much better. We've already eliminated half the ridiculous rules she'd implemented." "Did you know she tried to ban wind chimes? Said they were noise pollution." "That doesn't surprise me at all. We're going back to basics. Common area maintenance, reasonable neighborhood standards, and actually helping residents instead of harassing them. Radical concepts, I know." Jake walked over with beers for both of us. "So the county gig is official," signed the preliminary contract today. "Final contract next week once the lawyers review everything." "That's huge, man. You're going to need to expand your crew." "I know. I'm already looking at hiring 2 more guys, maybe 3. Plus I'll need another truck and probably a second roller eventually. Living the dream. It feels like it." The party went late into the evening, neighbors talking and laughing, kids playing in the yards. This was what a neighborhood should be, I thought. People supporting each other, celebrating successes, living their lives without fear of arbitrary rules and vindictive enforcement. Patricia's criminal trial was set for October. David, my lawyer, said the prosecutor had offered her a plea deal. Probation, community service, and mandatory counseling in exchange for pleading guilty to the false report charges and dropping the more serious identity theft investigation. Is she going to take it? I asked. Her lawyer's recommending it. If she goes to trial and loses, she's looking at jail time plus civil liability for the county's costs. The plea deal is her best option. Part of me wants her to face serious consequences. She will. A criminal record, probation, counseling. Plus the civil suit from the Ramirez family is moving forward. She's going to pay for what she did. I guess that's justice. That's exactly what it is. In late September, Patricia took the plea deal. She pled guilty to 3 counts of filing false reports, received 2 years probation, 300 hours of community service, and was ordered to undergo psychological counseling. She also resigned from the HOA board completely, which was part of the plea agreement. The Ramirez family settled their civil suit for $10,000, money Patricia had to pay out of pocket. By the time the Route 82 project started in October, Patricia had sold her house and moved out of Pine Ridge Estates entirely. I heard through the neighborhood grapevine that she'd moved to an apartment in a non-HOA community in another county. The Route 82 project went even better than Route 42. My expanded crew worked efficiently. The weather cooperated, and we finished a week early. Teresa Brennan supervised again, and her final report was glowing. "You've set a new standard for county contractors," she told me on the last day. "The commissioner's office is already talking about what projects to assign you next year." "I still can't quite believe how this all worked out," I said. "You earned it. You did good work, maintained professionalism even under harassment, and delivered quality results. That's rare." By December, Holloway Paving Solutions had 5 full-time employees, 2 trucks, the asphalt roller, a milling machine, and a 3-year maintenance contract with the county. I'd also picked up several private contracts for commercial parking lots, my reputation having grown significantly. I was at the office I'd rented, a small space in a business park, when David called with final news. Patricia completed her community service last week. She's done with everything except the ongoing probation and counseling. "How's she doing?" Her lawyer says she's working on her issues. Whether that's true or just what he has to say, I don't know. But legally, everything's resolved. Good. I'm ready to put all this behind me. You should be proud, Vincent. You stood up to harassment, didn't back down, and turned a terrible situation into an opportunity. Not everyone could have done that. I had good people supporting me. That too. But you made the right choices. Christmas in Pine Ridge Estates was magical that year. The HOA, under Teresa's leadership, organized a neighborhood light display contest that was actually fun instead of stressful. They held a holiday party at the community center where people actually enjoyed themselves. I drove through the neighborhood on Christmas Eve, looking at the lights and decorations, thinking about how different things were from just 6 months ago. My asphalt roller, the machine that had started everything, was safely stored at the equipment lot, ready for the spring construction season. That roller had been more than just a business investment. It had been a catalyst that exposed the toxicity in our HOA, led to positive change in the neighborhood, and opened doors I hadn't even known existed for my business. Sometimes the universe works in strange ways. You buy a piece of equipment and end up at war with your HOA. You stand your ground and end up with county contracts worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. You refuse to be bullied and end up helping reform an entire neighborhood association. New Year's Eve, I stood in my backyard watching fireworks over Cleveland, Marcus, Jake, and several other friends with me. My business was thriving. My neighborhood was finally a community instead of a battleground. Patricia had faced consequences for her harassment and was getting help. "What's your resolution for the new year?" Jake asked. "Keep doing good work," I said. "Treat people fairly, don't let anyone push me around. Pretty much what you've been doing." "Yeah, seems to be working." The fireworks exploded overhead, bright colors against the dark winter sky. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear people cheering, celebrating new beginnings. My phone buzzed. It was an email from the county engineer's office. Subject line: 2026 Project Opportunities. I opened it to find a list of potential projects they wanted to discuss with me. 6 different road resurfacing jobs, ranging from small residential streets to a major highway connector. Combined, they represented nearly $1 million in potential revenue. I showed the email to Marcus. His eyes went wide. "Boss, this is insane. You're going to need to expand again." "I know, we'll talk after the holiday." "You're really making it big." "We're making it big," I corrected. "None of this happens without a solid crew." The party continued around me, but I took a moment to step away to really absorb everything that had happened. 1 year ago, I'd been a struggling contractor, renting equipment and taking whatever small jobs I could find. Now I owned my equipment, had a team of reliable workers, county contracts, and prospects for major growth. All because I'd bought an asphalt roller and had the nerve to park it in my own driveway. Patricia had tried to destroy me over it. She'd called the police, harassed me at work, filed false complaints, and done everything in her power to make my life miserable. And in the process, she destroyed herself and inadvertently launched my business to a level I'd only dreamed about. There was probably a lesson in there about karma or perseverance or standing up for yourself. But mainly, I just felt grateful. Grateful for good friends, supportive neighbors, professional colleagues like Teresa, legal help from David, and the opportunity to do work I loved at a scale I'd never imagined possible. January brought new beginnings. I hired 3 more workers, bought a second truck, and started planning for the upcoming construction season. The county contracts were finalized, with work starting in April. Teresa stopped by my office one afternoon with a request. "The HOA wants to repave some of our neighborhood streets," she said. "Would you be interested in bidding on it?" I laughed. "That's ironic." "I know, but seriously, several streets need work, and we'd rather support a local contractor, especially one who lives in the neighborhood." "Send me the specs. I'll put together a bid. Fair price only. We're not expecting a discount just because you're a resident. Wouldn't offer one. Business is business," she smiled. "That's what I like to hear." My bid for the neighborhood street work came in competitive with 2 other contractors, and the HOA board selected me based on my recent county work and reputation. The project was scheduled for late summer, after the major county projects wrapped up. It felt full circle. The neighborhood that had tried to ban my equipment would now benefit from it directly. Spring arrived, and with it, the construction season. My crew had grown to 8 full-time employees plus occasional day laborers for big projects. We had 3 trucks, the roller, 2 milling machines, and a paver. Holloway Paving Solutions was no longer a small operation. We were a legitimate mid-sized paving contractor. The Route 82 maintenance work kept us busy through April and May. In June, we started a major residential street reconstruction project in North Royalton. July brought a shopping center parking lot renovation. August was the Pine Ridge Estates neighborhood street project. Working in my own neighborhood was strange but satisfying. Residents would come out to watch the work, ask questions, offer cold drinks to the crew on hot days. It was the complete opposite of the hostility I'd faced from Patricia just over a year ago. Mr. Chen brought his grandson out to see the operation. The kid, now a college sophomore studying civil engineering, asked detailed technical questions about compaction rates and asphalt temperatures. I spent an hour explaining the process, showing him the equipment, discussing the science behind quality paving work. "You're inspiring the next generation," Mr. Chen said proudly. "Just paying it forward," I said. "Someone took time to teach me when I was starting out." By September, the Pine Ridge project was complete. The streets looked beautiful, smooth and properly graded. The HOA held a small ceremony to thank the crew, presenting us with a plaque that read, "With appreciation for quality work and community partnership." Teresa made a short speech. "This is what a healthy HOA looks like. We identify real needs, work with qualified professionals, and improve our community for everyone. We don't harass residents over imaginary problems or abuse our limited authority. We serve our neighbors." The assembled residents applauded. I noticed several people glancing at Patricia's old house, now occupied by a young family with 2 small kids. The new owners had painted the shutters a cheerful blue and planted flowers in the yard. The house looked friendlier somehow, lighter. That evening, I was home reviewing project schedules when David called. "Vincent, I wanted to let you know that Patricia's probation officer contacted me. She's apparently doing well in counseling, has completed all her community service early, and has been compliant with all probation requirements." "That's good, I guess." "Her therapist's reports indicate she's working through some serious control issues and acknowledging the harm she caused. Whether it's genuine growth or just telling them what they want to hear, time will tell, but legally, she's fulfilling her obligations. I hope she's actually getting better. What she did was wrong, but I don't want her to be miserable forever." "That's generous of you." Life's too short to hold grudges. October brought an unexpected opportunity. A state highway department representative called about a major interstate resurfacing project. It was way bigger than anything I'd done before, but they'd heard about my county work and wanted to discuss a joint venture with a larger contractor. "You'd handle certain sections independently," the representative explained. "The bigger company would manage overall project coordination. But you'd be doing significant work on a state highway project. It's a foot in the door for future opportunities." I spent a week reviewing the proposal, consulting with Marcus and my business accountant. The numbers worked. The logistics were challenging but doable. And the prestige of having state highway work on my resume would be invaluable. "Do it," Marcus advised. "We've built a solid crew. We can handle this." I signed the joint venture agreement in November. Work would start the following spring and run through the summer. It represented nearly $500,000 in revenue for Holloway Paving Solutions. 2 years after buying that asphalt roller, my small paving company had become a major regional contractor with county, local, and state contracts. We employed 12 people full-time. We owned equipment worth over $300,000, and we had a reputation for quality work and professionalism that was opening doors constantly. In December, the local Chamber of Commerce named Holloway Paving Solutions Small Business of the Year. They held an awards dinner where I had to give a speech about my business journey. I talked about starting small, about the importance of quality work and treating people fairly. I mentioned the challenges of growing a business, the need for good employees and supportive colleagues. I didn't mention Patricia or the HOA drama directly, but I did say something about overcoming obstacles and turning adversity into opportunity. The audience, filled with other business owners and community leaders, applauded enthusiastically. After the ceremony, several people approached about potential contracts and partnerships. "Your growth has been remarkable," one said. "What's your secret?" "No secret," I said honestly. "Just do good work, treat people with respect, and don't back down when someone tries to bully you." That night, driving home with the business award on my passenger seat, I thought about how wildly different my life was from just 2 years earlier. How one decision to invest in my business had set off a chain of events I never could have predicted. Patricia's harassment had been terrible at the time, stressful and infuriating. But it had also forced me to stand up for myself, document everything, and ultimately demonstrate my professionalism under pressure. Those qualities had impressed the county officials who'd given me my first big break. Sometimes the worst experiences lead to the best outcomes, not because the experience itself is good, but because how we respond to adversity reveals and develops character. The new year brought continued growth. The state highway project started on schedule and went smoothly. Media coverage of the project mentioned Holloway Paving Solutions prominently, further boosting our reputation. By summer, I was turning down work because we were booked solid through the following year. "You need to expand again," my accountant advised. "Hire more people, buy more equipment. You're leaving money on the table." "I don't want to grow too fast," I said. "Quality is more important than size." "Fair point. But you've proven you can maintain quality while growing. Don't let fear hold you back." I thought about that conversation for weeks. Was I being cautious or afraid? There was a difference. In August, I hired 4 more employees and bought a 3rd truck and another paver. Holloway Paving Solutions was now a legitimate mid-sized contractor with 16 employees and nearly $1 million in annual revenue. Jake and I were having dinner one evening when he brought up Patricia. "Did you hear she's engaged?" he said. "Living in Columbus now, works for a nonprofit that helps people with mental health issues." "Good for her. Seriously." "You mean that?" "I do. She had problems. She got help. She's rebuilding her life in a healthier way. That's what should happen. Most people wouldn't be that forgiving after what she put you through. Holding on to anger would only hurt me. She faced consequences. She's making changes. That's enough." In September, 3 years after the asphalt roller incident, I received an unexpected letter. It was from Patricia. The letter was brief and handwritten. She apologized for her behavior, acknowledged the harm she'd caused, and took full responsibility for her actions. She didn't make excuses or try to justify what she'd done. She simply said she was sorry and hoped I could someday forgive her. She also mentioned she was doing well in Columbus, that therapy had helped her understand her need for control stemmed from anxiety and trauma from her own past. She was working on being a better person. I read the letter twice, then filed it away in my desk. That evening I wrote a reply. I kept it short. I accepted her apology and wished her well in her continued growth. I said I held no grudge and hoped she found peace and happiness. I mailed it the next morning. 2 weeks later, I received a thank you card from her, just a simple card with a note. "Your kindness means more than you know. Thank you." And that was it. The saga that had started with an asphalt roller in my driveway and escalated into police involvement, news coverage, and criminal charges ended with 2 people choosing forgiveness and moving forward. My business continued to thrive. By the end of that 3rd year, Holloway Paving Solutions had completed over 50 projects, employed 20 people, and had contracts booked into the following year. We'd expanded to handle not just asphalt work, but also concrete, seal coating, and parking lot maintenance. The asphalt roller that started everything still sat in the equipment yard, well maintained and regularly used. It had more than paid for itself hundreds of times over. But its value wasn't just financial. That roller represented a turning point, a moment when I'd invested in myself and my business, despite not knowing what would come next. Standing in the equipment yard one autumn evening, looking at all the machinery my company now owned, I felt overwhelming gratitude. Not just for the business success, but for everything I'd learned along the way. I'd learned that standing up for yourself matters, even when it's uncomfortable. That documentation and professionalism are powerful tools. That community support can emerge from unexpected places. That adversity can be transformed into opportunity if you respond with integrity. And I'd learned that forgiveness, both receiving it and offering it, is essential to moving forward. The sky was turning orange and purple as the sun set. My phone buzzed with an email from the State Highway Department about another potential project. I'd review it tomorrow. Tonight, I just wanted to appreciate how far I'd come, from a small contractor renting equipment to a business owner with 20 employees and major contracts. From an HOA target to a Chamber of Commerce award winner. From conflict and harassment to forgiveness and growth. All because I'd bought an asphalt roller and had the courage to park it in my own driveway. Sometimes the smallest decisions lead to the biggest changes. Sometimes standing your ground against unreasonable demands opens doors you never knew existed. Sometimes the people who try to tear you down end up being catalysts for your greatest success. I locked up the equipment yard and drove home to Pine Ridge Estates, where I was no longer fighting with the HOA but serving on a committee to improve neighborhood amenities. Where Patricia's house was filled with happy kids instead of surveillance equipment. Where neighbors supported each other instead of filing complaints. Home, where this whole crazy journey had started and where, ultimately, everything had worked out better than I could have imagined. The asphalt roller sat silent in its storage spot, ready for the next job. Just a piece of equipment to most people. But to me, it would always represent something more. The moment when I chose to invest in my future, the catalyst that exposed both the worst and best in people, and the machine that quite literally paved the way for everything that followed.